of one of the slides, and you've seen it enough times now, that the one that can pick it out immediately what I've removed, I'll find a prize for you. I'm getting to that. It's a beautiful song though, isn't it? Although there's a little bit of argy-bargy going on down here between my copper and gold guys. That's yellow. That's not what... You find a better song and James will stick it on the thing, but that's Stewie's choice. So let's not go against Stewie, because there could be hell to pay for that one. All right, team. I'm going to invite Mr. Frazer Tabeart to come to the stage. Look at this mild-mannered man as he comes up here. He's usually more at home in his high vis, but he's dressed up today, so he's a geologist. He's also the Managing Director of Alma Metals Ltd, which is an Australian-focused copper explorer. Their flagship project is the Briggs Pumphrey Copper Joint Venture, which is over in central Queensland, and the company has defined well over 1 million tonnes of copper metal in a very large outcropping porphyry copper moly system. Sounds good, doesn't it? Very nice. Drilling's underway to currently evaluate. You're evaluating higher grade zones within the current resource, but they've also, if you have a look at, and I'm sure you'll go through it too, your recently announced drilling results are supporting something that you're really interested in doing. That's a higher grade potential starter pit. Would you please make Frazer very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, Christina. Thanks everybody for joining us for this session. I hope you enjoyed your morning tea. Yes, so Alma is very much Australian focused and exclusively focused on copper. We'll take the cautionary statements as read. Let's get into it. So we've got two main projects. The one I'm going to talk mainly about today is the Briggs joint venture in Queensland. We're about 50 k's to the west of the second biggest deep water port in Australia in Gladstone. It's a joint venture. We're earning in from Canterbury Resources, who are the owner. We've currently got a 30% interest and we can go to 70. Since we got involved in the project, we've tripled the size of the resource to over 400 million tonnes now at 0.25% copper and about 30 ppm moly. In a few minutes, that 0.25% copper isn't as scary as it looks. We've got over 1 million tonnes of copper metal in the ground. It's right at surface. So we're talking the potential here for low strip ratio open pit mining with fantastic infrastructure. We've got very good metallurgy and significant upside on tonnage and grade, and that's what I want to go through mainly. We do have another project. It's a much earlier stage project in the East Kimberley. That's for an entirely different style of copper mineralisation. That's for sediment-hosted copper, similar to the Zambian copper belt. It's a project we started staking claims on about 2 years ago. We've got agreements in place with the traditional owners, and we're just waiting to get our government permits before we go and start our reconnaissance work there. So I won't say a great deal about that because we haven't done much work on the ground. Very quick corporate snapshot. We've got just over 1 billion shares on issue. 140 odd million options, and we've got just over $4 million worth of cash and tradable equities, no debt at all. Pretty experienced board. I'm sure everybody tells you that, but we've been around the block a few times, and members of the board have got quite significant shareholdings in the company. Let's talk about the project. So, as I said, it's a large outcropping porphyry copper. You can see the photograph here. There's a whole series of quartz stockworks in porphyritic granodiorite that is intruded into older volcanic sediments, and the mineralisation extends from the intrusion and into those volcanic sediments. And in fact, the higher grades that we're seeing now sort of straddle that contact zone, so that's become a focus of drilling. As I said, we've got 30%, we're going to 70% through a staged exploration expenditure. There are no cash payments to Canterbury, it's all money into the ground. We've got a large resource, as I said. That resource makes us now, we're in the top 10 of undeveloped copper projects in Australia. So it's a significant project. This upside in grade and tonnes, good metallurgy, and that great infrastructure. Just for a sense of sort of scale of these projects, this is just like a bubble diagram showing some of the large copper and bulk mineable projects that are out there. You can see the red bubble is our current published inferred resource. The orange bubble is the potential for the project if we took our exploration target all the way through to a resource, and bearing in mind that exploration target actually excludes the resource. If we combine them, if we can convert that exploration target into resource with the usual disclaimers, then we've got the potential for this to become, you know, as large as Caravel, if not bigger. So scale isn't the issue here at all. You know, one of the issues is the perception that 0.25% copper doesn't work. Well, here's the examples that show that it does work. There's a number of operating mines, particularly in well-established jurisdictions, not necessarily with good infrastructure, but certainly with good fiscal stability, that 0.25 to 0.3% copper works in a number of areas. There's a couple of things you need. You need to be able to mine efficiently, so you need scale. You can see all of these are mining roughly sort of 70,000 tonnes of copper metal a year or more. You need low strip ratio that helps with that, and you need ideally a stable fiscal regime. And in our case, if you've got good metallurgy, that means you're not leaving much of the payable metal on the tailings dam. So it can work if you've got all those things in your favour. We think we've got them all. We've got great infrastructure. We've got high voltage power line, two lines there within 10 kilometres of where the deposit lies. So this is the deposit here, power lines here, there's gas pipelines, there's a railway, there's a road, and the second biggest deep water port in Australia right on our doorstep. So we're going to be able to get things in to build. We're going to be able to get our concentrates out without any issues at all. It's a great place to have a large low grade deposit. Significant scale. So the image here, the background is copper anomalism in soil sampling. As I mentioned before, the deposit outcrops. So soil sampling is incredibly effective here as an exploration tool. We don't need to do geophysics. We can go straight to geological mapping and soil sampling. We've got grades of up to 0.4% copper in the soil samples, and the soil profile varies from 10 centimetres to about 1 metre thick, and then you're straight into saprolitic bedrock, and then after about 10 to 20 metres of weathering, you're into fresh rock. So the overall system is just over 2 kilometres in length, about 1 kilometre across. Interestingly, if I was to put up the molybdenum results here, you'll see there's an annular sort of zone of molybdenum high going around the copper. So it's a zone system, which is fairly typical of these porphyries. The black outline here is the outline of the published resource, and you can see the numbers up there on the board. But at a 0.2% copper cut-off, it's 415 million tonnes. If you drop the cut-off grade to 0.15%, then you're up at 700 million tonnes. So it's a very big system. That's just within the black outline, and you can see we haven't drilled anywhere near all of the geochemical anomaly, and that's just in the top 500 metres. We've got drill intersections at that depth where the mineralisation is as strong at depth as it is at surface. So there's no doubt that this system is going to continue to grow with additional drilling. The metallurgy I mentioned previously, we've done some preliminary met work. The two main ore types, as I mentioned before, are the granodiorite and then the volcanic sediments. We do have some higher grade zones where we're getting magmatic quartz bodies that are going up to 1 to 1.5% copper. They all effectively behave the same way from a metallurgical point of view. We're getting very, very good recoveries, and without optimization, we're getting sort of 92 to 95% copper recovery at close to commercial concentrate grade. So we're very confident that with further work, we'll be able to get high recovery with very attractive concentrate grades. There hasn't been any work yet on the molybdenum. That'll go into the next round of metallurgical test work. One of the key things that we've been doing, as was mentioned in the introduction, is we're very keen to follow up some areas of potential higher grades, particularly in the near surface environment. And as I mentioned before, we do see in previous drilling that there are zones of enhanced copper and molybdenum grades around the edge of the intrusion. So from 30 to 40 metres inside the intrusion to up to 50 metres outside of the intrusion. So that contact zone seems to be one that's focused a lot of the fluid flow and a lot of the quartz stockworks which are hosting the copper and the molybdenum. I won't read out the grades there, but you can see there are zones of up to 0.5% copper in the near surface environment, and that's important for us to be able to chase those up to see if there's the potential here for a 3 to 5 year starter pit that could be at higher than that 0.25% copper equivalent. And Yeah, the drilling program we're currently doing has just produced some results which are basically confirming that. So we've been drilling in this area here. We announced drill results from holes 19 and 20 earlier this week. Those holes went through this contact zone between, oops, you go back one, sorry. The granodiorite, you can see this is typical stockwork style porphyry mineralisation in a porphyritic granodiorite, and then the stockwork veins extending out into the volcanics. And the results from those holes were fantastic. You know, both holes drilled to a depth of 200 metres, completely in mineralisation. We terminated them at the planned depth of 200 metres in mineralisation, because the goal of this drilling was to evaluate that starter pit, not how deep this mineralisation goes. Both holes averaged 0.3% copper over that entire length, and then within that there are extensive zones, particularly in the near surface environment, at well over 0.3% copper, in some cases up to 0.35% copper, and also with some elevated molybdenum grades. So that's really starting to confirm this geological concept of the high grades around the margin of the intrusion. We've sort of taken that a little bit further with this diagram, where we've incorporated all of the soil sampling data, all of the drilling data, and basically created a 3D view of the copper distribution in the top 100 metres. And you can see the current drilling program here is now validating that zone of elevated copper, and then we've got this whole marginal zone around the intrusion yet to be tested. And so we're very confident that with further drilling, we're going to expand that and get that 3 to 5 year starter pit. So that's the focus of the current work. We've got another 3 to 4 drill holes going on in here. We'll complete that drilling in about a month's time. We'll then take a break during the main sort of cyclone season, and then the goal is to come back out in late March, early April next year, drill this contact zone, and then that will form the basis of a resource update, which will take us into hopefully a scoping study that will commence in the second quarter next year, and aim to have that completed by the end of the year. Just on the upside, on the scale, the white dashed outline here that's superimposed on the surface geochemistry, that's our exploration target. And effectively what we've done there is we've gone out to the 500 ppm copper in soil anomaly, added in the known outcrop positions of granodiorite and mineralised volcanic sediments, put a line around that, extended that to the same depth as the existing inferred resource, subtracted the existing inferred resource, and that gives us our exploration target of between 480 million and 880 million tonnes of copper, of mineralisation, with a range of grade of 0.2 to 0.3% copper. That's obviously an exploration target, so take that with a degree of caution, but it certainly gives us an idea of the scale of mineralisation here in the top 500 metres. And you know, these types of deposit typically have vertical extents of well in excess of 500 metres. You know, some of the big ones in the world are over 2 kilometres vertical extent. So there's no doubt that this is a very, very large accumulation of copper. We're starting to see evidence of higher grade zones that would be good for a starter pit. It's a very exciting project, almost, certainly one that we think is going to get developed in the next 5 to 10 years. Finally, just one slide on our East Kimberley copper project. This is much more conceptual in nature. We have a series of copper-bearing basement volcanics and arkoses, and then overlying that we've got a sequence of paleoproterozoic sediments, and there are a number of copper occurrences at very specific stratigraphic horizons. In both cases they are reduced sequences, the first reduced and the second reduced sequence in that entire package, and we're seeing copper occurrences there that were mapped in the 50s and the 60s. A little bit of follow-up work by CRA in 1971, but since then absolutely no work, because it's remote, it's on an Aboriginal reserve, and therefore access is difficult to negotiate. But we've made significant headway there with the traditional owners. We've got agreements in place with them that would allow us to do our first phases of reconnaissance and then potentially enter into a joint venture. We're now just waiting for our government permits to get out there. So the goal is to get out there in the dry season next year and do our first phase of reconnaissance. So that one's a bit of a sleeper, but certainly has fantastic potential to give us something else in the portfolio. So yeah, lots of work ongoing. We should have news flow all the way through pretty much the next 12 months. So I hope you keep an eye on it, and thanks for your time.
Well done. Thank you, Sir Frazer. All right, Iggy Tan, where are you, sir? Iggy, you'll all know, has been a trailblazer in the lithium industry now. He's a trailblazer in salt battery technology.
You probably woke up at 2 a.m. this morning wondering what's the future of grid storage batteries? No? Well, before I talk about that, I just want to talk about solid state batteries. Who knows about solid state? It's been in the media for a while. So maybe let me explain to you. In a lithium battery, you got the cathode, the positive end, and you got the anode, which is the negative end. And in between, there's actually a liquid electrolyte that allows the lithium to go back and forth. Unfortunately, the liquid electrolyte is flammable. And so the industry is trying to remove that liquid electrolyte and replace it with a solid state, which is actually just a ceramic piece. And it allows the lithium to go back and forth. Who's got a Tesla? Well, one of the issues with lithium-ion batteries is that it catches fire and is virtually impossible to put out because it generates oxygen at the cathode end of the battery. So essentially, if you've got a battery fire, you just got to watch it burn. You're never going to put that out. Now, so that's one of the issues concerning lithium batteries, the safety issues. You actually get thermal runaway, and that's what happens. A lot of people don't even realize that lithium batteries only operate in a very limited temperature range. So about 15 degrees to about 35 degrees. When you get to very cold climates, your battery actually slows down. So the capacity drops to 70% and really unsuitable for even desert conditions. We also know that lithium degrades every time you charge and discharge the battery. So generally the life is about 8 to 10 years. We've seen recently the price of lithium go up, and that's been a concern for the industry. So lithium prices have gone up 4 or 5 times. And then we also, the industry is concerned about cobalt. 70% of cobalt comes from the DRC, and there's ethical supply issues with child labor and so on. Also, recently China announced some limitation to export of graphite around the world. 95% of graphite comes from China, so it represents a geopolitical risk. And then obviously there's the copper crunch. There's enough studies that show that there's not even enough copper mines coming online to even meet the demand for copper. So is there a battery that is actually fireproof, operates at a large temperature range, greater than 15-year life, that hasn't got any lithium, cobalt, graphite, copper, or even manganese? So introducing you to the Serenergy battery, was developed by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. It's actually sodium chloride solid state battery. So sodium chloride is common table salt, and solid state is that ceramic that I was talking about. So you can see here a 5 kilowatt battery. So the beauty of this technology, because it's solid state and it hasn't got the liquid electrolyte, it's totally fireproof. So we don't have any problems with thermal runaway. The temperature range actually operates down to minus 40 degrees and up to 60 degrees. And the reason for that is the internal of the battery is 270 degrees. It's fully insulated, so you can actually touch it. But the analogy is a bit like a mammal. It's got its own temperature regulation system, because when you charge the battery, it's an endothermic reaction, takes heat away, and when you discharge, it creates heat. So by doing that, it just maintains the temperature. We use sodium ions. So sodium doesn't degrade every time you charge, and discharge the battery, so we've got more than 15-year life. And as you know, sodium is actually a very reactive material. If you remember your chemistry, sodium sits just under lithium in the periodic table, right? And but the thing is that sodium with chloride is very stable. In fact, you add it to your food. We don't have any cobalt in the chemistry. We don't require cobalt. The density is very similar to LFP batteries. And the most important thing is we don't have an anode. It's a self-forming anode. We don't have graphite, and we don't have the copper collector. So no graphite and copper. So how does this battery work? Well, very exciting technology. So essentially you've got this ceramic tube, which is the solid state. In the middle of the tube, there's a positive probe. And what we do is we fill it up with salt and nickel metal powder. So nickel is the other component. This ceramic tube then sits in a metal canister, which acts as the negative part of the battery. So you can see a picture of the ceramic tube there. And this is what it looks like when the tube is inserted in that cylinder. Now, when you charge the battery, sodium ions leave the chloride ions, migrate through the solid state, and it forms molten sodium on the other side of it. And the nickel is there to grab the chloride, so it allows the sodium to migrate. So the unique part of this battery, as you can see the molten sodium forming on this cross-section, is that it forms the anode when you charge it, and it dissolves the anode when you discharge it. So it's a self-forming anode. That's why you don't need graphite or copper in this battery. Here you see on discharge, the sodium ions migrate back through the ceramics, grabs the chloride, and becomes salt again. What's the energy density like? Well, it's very similar to LFP batteries. The energy conversion is even better than LFP batteries. As I mentioned, the cycle life is nearly double. But the most important thing is the maintenance costs. There are no cooling fans in this battery. So in a Tesla Megapack, you've got something like 26 cooling fans, 2 big air conditioners trying to remove the heat, right? This is the same as your EV battery. Where we sit on this curve, this is a curve where the bottom part is how much energy the battery gives, and the vertical axis is how much power it gives. So the red area is where all the lithium ion batteries. So the top part are the nickel cobalt batteries with lots of power. And then the bottom part are the LFP batteries. You just want a lot of energy, not necessarily a lot of power. All right, where is our market? Our market is in the grid storage market. So in grid storage, basically, you're generating power from the sun, but at night, you're not generating any electricity. So grid storage is essentially energy shifting. So shifting that power to the nighttime. So a bit like a household, you can have these big batteries on the grid. The problem today is that we discharge renewable energy every year. So California discharges 3 billion of renewable energy every year to the ground. Germany, 2 billion. And in Australia, I read an article, about 30% of renewable energy is just discharged to the ground because during the day, there's so much capacity and the demand is actually low. So the solution is to put batteries on the grid. So essentially, these grid storage batteries are charged during the day when the sun's out and just discharge at night. All right, so we're ready to commercialize this technology. As I mentioned, it was all developed by the German Institute. They spent nearly 35 million euros into the development of this technology. This is not research and development anymore. We're now commercializing it. So as you can see, some of the vision here, that's a 5 kilowatt battery undergoing tests. The pilot plant are taking alumina to produce these ceramics. And you can see here is another battery undergoing tests. So lots of technology that's been developed. Here's the alumina being mixed to make the ceramics. And this is what the ceramic tube looks like. They have to be calcined at 1600 degrees. And then from then on, you add all your components, and that's the battery. The project we have is a 120 megawatt plant We own 75% of the joint venture, and essentially we're building this plant in Saxony, Germany. On the east part of Germany, Saxony is known for the state of lots of EV development and battery production, and we're right on the border. This is some vision of our design. You can see a lot of solar panels, and this project will be accredited as a green project. This is our first product. It's a 60 kilowatt battery, and you can see there's 240 of these cylindrical cells producing 100 amps and 600 volts. What we do is we take 18 of these and we put it into a sea container, and this is our 1 megawatt battery pack. So virtually, you can deliver 1 megawatt to your site, and within 5 minutes, it's a plug and play scenario. You can have 1 megawatt connected to your grid within the delivery time. If you know lithium-ion batteries, you can't transport lithium-ion batteries because of the problems they have. So essentially, they also can be triple stacked, so it reduces the footprint, and essentially, we're in the process of finishing a DFS. So the design of the plant is completed, and we have to produce one of these cylindrical cells every 45 seconds. But that's the production line. So you can imagine the design of the plant is highly automated. So this is some vision of the equipment that we use, automation and robotics, producing all these cells from scratch at every 45 seconds. So as I mentioned, we're in the final stages of a DFS. We've done the capital costs, operating costs, and in fact, we have also started the permitting process. On the offtake side, we are talking to 2 possible partners, essentially to buy all our batteries for the first 5 years of the project. And one of them is a utility company. So a German utility company that wants to put on 8 gigawatts of renewable energy. They need batteries. We've also started the financing of this project. The grant applications are happening. We're talking to European banks and the green bonds. So lots of activities. In the next quarter, we'll be finalizing the DFS and starting to roll this out. Finally, there's some vision about our production of the prototype. So we're building 2 60 kilowatt prototypes. You can see here the alumina powder being mixed up. We add a lot of additives to allow the sodium to go through the solid state. And you can see that this is a spray dryer, so to dry the material. We then press it into these tubes that then have to be calcined at 1600 degrees. And then from then on, we then add it to the cylinder. This is some quality checks that it's going through to check the integrity of these tubes. And you can see these tubes now going into the cylinder. We then fill it with salt and nickel metal powder, which is the active ingredient of these batteries. There's some of these salt and nickel metal powder going as granules. And then they have to be welded together. And then they undergo tests in a machine. So very exciting technology. And our future is not only to build this 120 megawatt plant, we'll be looking at a gigafactory at least 4 gigawatts. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Iggy. Look, he's domesticated this one too. He puts everything back where he found it. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Now, the first person I met today when I arrived, got into the lift with him, was Johnny Dugdale. Now, he's a geo with a very, very good track record for discoveries. We got in the same lift, and I asked him, what is the head? That's your timer there, Iggy. There we go. I asked John what the headline was for Golden Deep. So it's a company he is technical advisor for. You can do that. Where am I going? Yeah, Bluebird, that's what you said. Oh, Tennant. Wait. Yeah, you're right. It's your. Do you know why I did that? Because that's how you were. Because I cyberstalk everyone before they get up there, and I've got this beautiful picture of you on my computer in the old days, and your hair was slightly darker, so I should have really twigged, shouldn't I? I'll go back over here now. But anyway, he wanted to talk about this Bluebird high-grade copper gold discovery. Talk, 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 out the lift, talk, 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 talk. So John, your time starts now.
Just testing the mic. Yes, it all works. So thank you to the RIU. Thank you for the subtitle, the next big discovery, because I think it's quite apt in this case. So we're talking about the Bluebird high-grade copper-gold discovery. It's located in the middle of the Northern Territory, just east of Tennant Creek. And it's the first major new discovery in that field, we think. It's for about 35 or 40 years. So here we are in the Barclay project, which is where the Bluebird discovery is located, about 40 kilometres east of Tennant Creek. Now, Tennant Creek is actually a world-class mineral field. It's produced about 25 million tonnes at nearly 7 grams per tonne gold and nearly 3% copper for 5.5 million ounces of gold and over 700,000 tonnes of copper. Despite this strong, very high-grade production history, as I mentioned before, no really new major discoveries, despite the fact that the geophysics works a treat, if you know what you're looking at. Some of the major deposits in the field that have been mined include the, I'll put that away. Include the Warrego deposit, which produced about 6.75 million tonnes at 6.6 grams per tonne gold and nearly 2% copper. And the Pico deposit, which produced about 3.7 million tonnes at 4% copper and 3.5 grams per tonne gold. Greenfield, Bluebird looks like another one of these, but it's a greenfields discovery in an area of cover just off the outcropping part of the main host rock for these deposits, the Warramunga Formation. But it looks like a dead ringer for one of these major deposits, particularly Pico. So just looking at the deposit itself. So it's a blind discovery, doesn't make it to surface. The host rock is ironstone within the Warramunga Formation, and the deposit's associated with this major ironstone developed in these folded anticlines, which we think now has been formed quite early in the piece, and then the mineralisation's been introduced by these later structures during a later hydrothermal event. And that's quite important in understanding how to find more of these things, is understanding that relationship between the early formed ironstones and the later structures that have intersected these things and introduced more iron and a lot more copper and gold. The mineralisation is primary, the gold is free, so you can see quite coarse gold in amongst the hematite, so we should be able to extract a fair bit of it using gravity. We're about to start the metallurgy. And it's a primary copper ore body as well. We've got chalcopyrite and chalcocite, a bit of native copper at the edges. So this is a fair dinkum bedrock deposit. Just looking at the longitudinal view of the deposit, so that's looking side on. With the first section I showed you is through the guts here. The initial discovery was made using some surface geochemistry a number of years ago, but the drilling wasn't able really to penetrate the main part of the ore body. So our initial discovery holes went into this fat zone, I guess, over the top of the anticline. I mentioned the 63 metres at 2.1% copper, 4.6 grams per tonne gold. That was one of the discovery holes. We've also recently announced 30 metres at 6.2% copper, 6.8 grams per tonne gold. But that includes a zone of 17.8 metres at 11.5 grams per tonne gold, and a 16-metre zone of 10.5% copper. So truly high grade. We've since extended the deposit to the west and more recently to the east, up plunge. It's truly open in all directions. We're actually following it up closer to the surface. Some of these intersections to the west are very high grade as well, including 18 metres at 2.6% copper and 11.08 grams per tonne gold, but that includes a 5-metre zone at 38.6 grams per tonne gold. So this is the characteristics of a very good example of a Tennant Creek style deposit. But what I'm going to show you in a moment is it could be much, much bigger. The next stage of drilling, which is currently in progress, is extending that upper zone closer to surface. We're also doing some more drilling on this western side, this western very high-grade gold copper zone. But even more importantly than that, we think we might be getting onto a repeat of this discovery to the east of Bluebird. So these are cross sections through the deposit. That was that original section through the middle that we talked about earlier. That's a section for the western side of the deposit. There's the 30 metres at 6.2% copper, 6.8 grams per tonne gold in there. It is open up dip, but there's nothing on the surface here, so it's truly blind. We've also followed it up to within 60 metres of surface on the eastern side. And this is very important. We've just talked about, we just announced that we've intersected 111 metres of hematite alteration with 47 metres of strong to intense visual copper mineralisation in a zone that actually extends to within 60 metres of surface. This could mean that we could start the project using an open pit, which will, one, potentially make a bit of money, but it would provide access via open pit to this, this very high-grade material, which would be better mined from underground. Now let's look at the bigger picture. That's an image showing, it's a gravity image. These deposits at Tennant Creek and the Bluebird discovery included are associated with ironstone, and this is one of the biggest iron anomalies in the entire field. Bluebird sits along this east, southeast, west, southwest trending gravity corridor here, and that's related to an ironstone that's formed in an early formed fold, and it's the intersection of that ironstone corridor with these later mineralising structures, which is the reason why Bluebird is formed. Now, this through-going corridor of both structures and iron is a major corridor of mineralisation. We've got some old gold workings at Perseverance here and some other geochem, but essentially Bluebird is the only one of a number of targets, at least 6 targets that have been tested, because most of the ironstone is about at least 80 to more than 100 metres below surface, and we know that from our gravity inversion. And this is a picture of that gravity model. There's the shallow anomaly going in through there, doesn't seem to penetrate to great depth, and here's this major mineralising corridor. And the important thing about this is that a number of the deposits in the Tennant Creek field are like jellyfish. So the mineralised zones are actually located within the ironstone, and the ironstone peters out at depth. In this case, at Bluebird, or the Barclay project, we can see that these ironstones are continuing for at least 500 metres below surface. So there's going to be a lot more mineralised ironstone continuing at depth. So we're only really just scratching the surface. Focusing in on around Bluebird again, this is a plan view looking at the gravity inversion. So we're looking at the red zone there is actually the ironstone at Bluebird. That's the model of Bluebird. We've only really tested it across 500 metres. We've actually got a 1.5 kilometre very strongly developed ironstone, and we know that the mineralising structure runs through the whole thing. We've got some previous RAB geochemistry in here that indicates we're just sitting at the top of another one of these zones, and certainly the gravity is telling us that as well, or at least it's telling you you've got the ironstone host. But we're also able to use the magnetics. Now, the magnetics is interesting because most of the earlier discoveries at Tennant Creek were made using magnetics, but they were targeting obvious magnetic highs, and eventually they ran out of them. And that's one of the reasons why there's been no major new discoveries for 35 or 40 years. We've done a lot of work with this magnetics, and I won't go into full detail, but Bluebird is associated with this quite subdued anomaly in here, and it's actually a negative anomaly, and that's the fingerprint of the mineralisation. So we're able to use the magnetics to fingerprint the timing and also the style of alteration. So there's the Bluebird anomaly, there's the Bluebird East anomaly. Looks even stronger. And that's the one we're testing now for a repeat. And then here's the anomaly at Bluebird West, which we haven't even tested yet because we haven't had time. So there's potential here to triple the footprint of what we've already identified. And that gives you the opportunity to establish a very large, high-grade, standalone resource. But that's not all. One of the missing links here, or the holy grail, is to be able to find a geophysical method that can find the mineralisation directly. And I think we've got it. That's a section through the main part of the discovery, showing IP resistivity. So the mineralisation actually occurs in a low resistivity zone, and it's a great contrast with the surrounding rocks. So we've now stepped out east and west of Bluebird and found repeats of that resistivity anomaly, particularly in this eastern zone. And that's helping us not only find, we know from the large gravity inversion that we've got the ironstone out there, we know from the magnetics that it's altered, and now we know that we've probably got a mineralised target, and that means we can find it with, much fewer holes, because we've narrowed down the target to a very small footprint. And this is the latest update. So this is looking at that longitudinal view. It's an expanded longitudinal view of the deposit. So we're looking side on. We've been extending the drilling up plunge to the east, closer to surface, interestingly. We've done some more drilling on the western side, but the important key breakthrough has been the intersection of significant 24 metres of mineralisation with 8 metres of visible copper mineralisation in this Bluebird East target zone. And that's focusing on the area where both the magnetics, the gravity and the IP says it is. We're now going to follow up that work. We're looking at drilling underneath, and I'll show you a section in a moment, and also some targeted drill holes down plunge to the west. That drilling is going to be moving to that area very shortly. But the opportunity here is that we've got a repeat of the Bluebird footprint. That's a section through that eastern zone. Interestingly, the mineralisation sits just to the north of the main gravity model, and we haven't drilled that position before. We've always sort of drilled the main part of the ironstone, and the projection of that new discovery would be actually sitting down here underneath these sections to the west. There's that section on the eastern side with 111 metres of hematite with 47 metres of copper, results to come fairly soon. And then there's these other 48 metre strong to intense mineralisation on the western zone, and we don't know anything about the gold in that hole. So these results will be coming through soon, as will this one, but we already know that it's worth following up because of what we can see in the core. And this is an example of what the geophysics is showing us. This is an earlier version of the longitudinal, a model of the induced polarisation resistivity, and this is a section to the east of the main part of the discovery. Hopefully the discovery drill hole of Bluebird East is sitting in here, and we think this is going to be the guts of this new zone, and we'll be drilling at least one hole from north to south to intersect that in this next phase. Not sure why it's not moving. Oh, there we go. And we can even step out even further. So there's the magnetics and the gravity through the Barclay project. There's a magnificent magnetic anomaly. That's not the ore body. That's the ore body, and it's associated with a magnetic negative, which is one of the reasons why it wasn't discovered in the earlier phase. Heading to the south, the Warramunga that hosts these deposits goes undercover. We've got magnetics showing us all sorts of things. There in the overlying sequence, there was a drill hole that intersected very high-grade gold in here. What we've now done is done gravity, and voila, we've probably got a mineralised ironstone sitting underneath it. So that'll be another program that will look to expand on what we're doing at Bluebird, where we've developed methodology for finding these things undercover. All that in a 27 million market cap. We've got 3 million cash in the bank at the end of last quarter. If you go back far enough, our share price is trending up nicely. Oh, there we go. Next steps, keep drilling, keep finding more, triple the footprint, do some metallurgical test work to back up the resource work. When we get to a potential standalone, we'll put a resource out and move into the development study stage. I don't know why this is not working. But
If only it was a lithium battery, you're saying to yourself.
there we go.
right?
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Tennant Minerals, Tennant Minerals, Tennant Minerals. Thank you, Jonathan. So my apologies there. You've got such a, as I said before, you've got such a good track record. It wasn't hard to find lots of photos of you. All right, what's happening next? Next up, we've got Green Technology Metals on stage. And they're about to release a scoping study in time for Christmas, coming into the new year. Don't destroy my desk. What are you doing? Iggy Tan left it nicely and you've taken it apart. All right.
I can't present like Iggy, sorry.
They're a really good team. And one of the things Mr. Lithium Joe Lowry always says about Green Technology Metals is the fact that you've got this awesome team. So usually at this point of the day, we would have Luke Cox come to the speech, but it's Luke's wife's birthday. So he's handed over to the very capable Cameron Henry, who unfortunately is not appropriately attired. So this is the company shirt.
This is Luke's tablecloth that he usually wears at most conferences. This is his lucky shirt.
You're not going to wear it. You're going to deny the shirt.
I'll put it here for good luck.
Okay, all right.
Just like the
Regardless, everyone, give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks everyone for having us. Thanks RIU for putting on today. It's very warm outside. I'm wearing a t-shirt and we're based in Canada in the cold up there. So there's a bit of contrast. Green Technology Metals, we are a Canadian-focused lithium company. We've been listed for about 2 years now, and we are focused on developing, not just exploring, developing our assets in northwestern Ontario. It's an amazing frontier. It deserves a hell of a lot of exploration and continued spend in the exploration sector up there to build a complete lithium supply chain, and we hope to be and will be the first in production up there. So. Relatively modest market cap, about 100 million. We've got cash in the bank. We've got some extremely well endowed and strategic shareholders on our register, including AMCI Group, Lithium Americas, LG Energy Solutions, Primero Group, and Waratah. So, for a size and a junior of our size, having those sorts of groups on the register, I think it's quite unique. They can obviously see something that maybe some can't. So where are we? We're in Western Ontario. We're just north and west of Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay is a town of about 120,000 people. It's an industrial hub, very similar to Pumphrey. It's got ports, it's got engineering companies, mining companies, and there's lots of mines in the area. We've got about 24.9 million tonnes. As you can see on the right-hand side, when we listed, we had about 4.8 in resources. We've continued to grow that, and we will continue to grow that over the coming years. There's one thing that's for certain. There is a huge amount of lithium-bearing spodumene pegmatites west of Thunder Bay, and they're a bit harder to find. You can't find them from Google Earth like some people do. We've got to do the hard work, but there's absolutely no shortage of them up there. We've got exploration targets around 50 to 60 million, and I think the most important thing on this slide is that we plan to be in production in 2025. So when you line up all the potential producers, the explorers, and I guess all the supply chain analytics from different sources, there's not many that are going to be in production in 2025, and we certainly think that that'll be us. Extremely competent board. John Young founded Pilbara Minerals, Pat Murphy from AMCI, and Rob Longley, who's here today as well, he was one of the managing directors from Arden, where we acquired the assets, and myself. So tight, small board, but we are looking to expand that in the future and certainly add some Canadian flavour to it as well. Why Ontario? If you don't care about Canadian lithium, you should, because there is a complete difference between what's happening in Australia down here and what's happening in North America. There is huge, billions, tens of billions of dollars being spent in North America on downstream facilities, midstream facilities by all the automotive houses, all the strategics from Japan, Korea, et cetera, there is a huge abundance, and they're all looking for a product that is supplied from North America. There's absolutely no two ways about it. Is there enough supply up there to keep these guys happy? Not even close. I mean, Umicore are building a CAM facility in Ontario, probably 1,200 kilometres from where our processing facility will be. We can't even supply a quarter of that to their CAM facility. So there is a huge amount of opportunity to supply lithium chemicals into a burgeoning industry in North America. And so the next part is there's a huge amount of government support that goes with that too. I mean, you look at what the Australian government is pumping into potential critical minerals industry, and you look at what's coming out of Canada and US, it is 10, 20, 30 times the size. So the opportunity is there for companies that do progress their projects, not just drill them out. The opportunity is there for projects that are coming into production, and there is huge amounts of government support with it. Very complex slide, but look, we are not a simple company. We do have huge ambitions, and there's a lot to do up there. So this is our timeline for production on both our 3-stage strategy. The first is our Eastern Hub, which is Seymour. We'll be releasing a PEA in the next few weeks, and we will be heading straight to a DFS with a financial investment decision at the end of the first half of 2024. Construction will begin in the second half of 2024 and will be in production by the end of 2025, producing spodumene concentrate. The second part of the strategy is a chemical conversion facility. We've located a site in Thunder Bay. It's a great opportunity to look at building, I guess, a regional hub there that can process not only our ore but other potential ores as well. We are looking at studying that at the moment. We're looking at bringing in potential partners to fund and help build and operate that plant. We're certainly not going to take it on ourselves, but we are studying the opportunity to show the complete supply chain strategy will work up there. And stage 3 is our Western Hub. It's our second concentrator. It's a bit further west of Thunder Bay, which is the Root project. We're continuing to drill that out, and that's sort of probably 5-6 years down the track. And we'll fill in to longer years in to extend our mine life across our concentrators to feed into the conversion facility. So here's a bit more detail on the Eastern Hub. Seymour, we acquired this when we acquired it with the assets. It had about 4.8 million tonnes in a resource. We're now up to 10.3 at 1.03. We have an exploration target around 22, 26 from there and the surrounding projects. And so we're in pre-development at the moment. The Seymour pegmatite, North Albury, the main pegmatite, you can see it's one sort of main big unit. It's quite amenable to mining. It's got about 45-degree dip, probably about 120, 140 metres across, and up to 40 metres thick in some areas. So we think it's pretty easy to mine. It's very coarse-grained spodumene. We've proven that with our test work in the next few slides. But it's certainly a very good small production asset to get things moving. There's plenty of projects out there that are looking to build $500 billion, first round projects. We're looking to build a very modest capex project that's easy to operate, small staffing, up to 100 people when we're in operation, and get it into production. And that's the difference between us and a lot of other companies. You can also see to the right our Junior Lake project. We just acquired those in the last 3 to 4 months. They're less than 20 kilometres. We think there's a huge amount of potential upside in that space. We'll continue to grow that, and so hopefully we'll be able to see some more sort of drill results and success in the first half of next year to complement with the production heading forward at Seymour. There's plenty of other juniors in the area as well. Battery Metal Ages, BMA here today. They're just up the road there where it says Falcon Project. So there's plenty of opportunity and regional opportunity as well in the area. Test work, yep, we've got a very coarse-grained spodumene. It's very clean, low in iron, very easy to concentrate. I mean, I've looked at and probably worked at about at least 20 hard rock projects globally. This is some of the best test work results we've had. To be able to produce a 6.8% concentrate at about a 72% recovery with such low iron is fantastic. Certainly informs us of our flow sheet design, and we'll be looking for a pretty simple 2-stage DMS flow sheet at Seymour. Here's some photos. We are incredibly, I think, advanced on design, and our permitting sort of dictates that as well, which we are extremely advanced with as well. So we have been doing a huge amount of work over the last 12 months to further the feasibility and I guess the overall permitting and development of Seymour. So we are getting very close, and we will be breaking ground next year on the Seymour project. Here's the overall, I guess, site layout. We are actually going to be a zero water discharge site, which means that we do capture all the water. It's certainly one of the first mines in the area that has that feature, but helps us with our overall, I guess, ESG credentials as well, because we're not discharging water to the outside environment. There's no chemicals in the processing, which obviously help with the permitting scenario. And we will be dry stacking our tailings as well. So you can imagine that, talking to Japanese and Korean investors and companies, that this sort of project with these sorts of ESG credentials and carbon footprint are very attractive as well. The second stage of our strategy is the conversion facility. That's Thunder Bay. That's a site that we have a lease on and have done a lot of work on, which is an old paper and pulp mill situated in the northern region of Thunder Bay. We have been doing some continued work over the last couple of years on that, or last 12 months, sorry, and we're continuing to do that over the next 12 in a preliminary PFS study. Here's the site layout itself. We can fit 2 trains on there. We have applied for a strategic innovation funding application with the federal government in Canada. There's $1.5 billion available for processing downstream infrastructure. So we're the first company to make that application in Ontario, and we're certainly still in contact with the government and pushing that application. So there's a huge amount of work going on. We're doing test work at the moment in the US with FL Schmidt, testing a various number of flow sheets. The calcination work's underway, and we'll be reporting to the market very soon on those results as well. Here's just some more layout and footprint. We have done quite a bit of modelling. You can see there's 2 trains there that fit on the block. Train 1 is the green, train 2 is the white. It's incredibly well endowed with infrastructure. It's serviced with power, natural gas, water. There's grid power right there, which is all hydropower or nuclear. So there's no diesel. It's not even gas fired. It's extremely green power. And port and rail within sort of 2 kilometres of site, so we can train in and train out with anything that we need. So I mean, we're gonna continue to study this. We'll permit it, and we'll be looking at bringing in strategic partners who actually produce lithium hydroxide currently in the market, that are known and proven operators and want to invest in the supply chain in North America. Stage 3 is the Western Hub, which is the Root project. So a little bit further away. It's 500 kilometres away from Thunder Bay, but still, pretty close compared to some deposits in Western Australia from a port and processing hub. We're about 14.6 million tonnes there at 1.21. This will be our biggest project. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The more we drill there, the more we seem to prove up. 20 to 24 million tonnes is about our exploration target. We could potentially be revising that in the future. We've done about 42,000 metres drilling, so what we do have there, we're extremely confident in what we have with regards to grade and actual resource. This will be included in the PEA as well. So you can sort of see here on the top left, how do I point? The top left is where we started at Macomb. We proved up about 4.5 million tonnes there because there was some existing drill holes there. But what we did pretty quickly is we moved to the Chrissy Morrison deposit. We drilled a couple of holes there, and that was very promising as well. But then, I don't think anyone got that, did they? No. But more importantly, we got to the Root Bay deposit, which is a bit further down to the east here, and we were really excited about what we saw, and there was a couple of outcropping pegmatites there. But we certainly, as soon as we started drilling, we certainly proved up what we thought was underneath, and that's quite a large stacked system. That's now at 10.1 million tonnes in probably about 8 months of drilling. So, I mean, Northern Ontario, it does take a bit longer to find your resource and prove up your resource, but there's no doubt that it is there when you do find it. Doesn't make much sense, but it is there. One of the announcements we just made we just released yesterday is that we've just hit some more LCT pegmatites to the east here on the ridge, 23 metres at 1.16%. So we're on a large sort of ridge here, which is a topographical high, but certainly does show that we're onto a system, and it does look stacked, and looks like the potential of the Root Bay deposit could repeat itself along that ridge. So we're going to continue to drill it out and over the next 6 months, and we will be studying that next year into a PFS as well. That's just a bit of a cross section there. It does show pegmatite 6, which is about 17-18 metres in thickness. We have actually popped in a couple of deep holes here. These aren't even included in the resource. There could be another 3 to 4 million tonnes. But certainly, as with all these pegmatites, most of them go to the centre of the earth. So we've only studied open pit potential in the study. It's all we're looking at the moment, but certainly over the next 6 to 12 months, we're starting to look at potential underground extensions, which just add more and more years into the inventory. There's some layouts for Root Bay, so it is getting quite advanced. This will be a hybrid DMS and flotation circuit, so better recoveries, bigger capex, but better recoveries, and it'll be our third stage of the strategy. And just some more layouts. We've got a hydro power line within 2 kilometres of the facility, so again, great infrastructure. There's full all-weather roads straight into the site, which get you to main highways. And what's next? We've got a lot coming up on the horizon. We will be releasing our PEA in the next couple of weeks. That's quite a complex document. We're working on it for 12 months, and it will be an integrated PEA with all 3 stages. and it'll show economics on the combined concentrators and in the chemical conversion facility as well. We're going to continue drilling, conversion test works going on. We will be drilling it, a maiden drilling program at Junior in Q1 2024, so look forward to those results. DFS on mine and financial investment decision, and certainly some more conversion facility work in 2024, as well as strategic partner discussions. So thanks to everyone for listening. Hope you enjoy the day. It's nice and warm outside. Thank you, Chrissy. Can I take my shirt?
Put a shirt on. No, I haven't touched you. Put a shirt on. I haven't touched you. I might get in trouble somewhere. Right.
Have you smelled Luke?
I don't know. I don't want to smell Luke. He's got a wife at home and she loves him for some bizarre reason. Right, we're just going to take one sleeve in.
All right, I'll put it on.
This is for those of you who don't know, Luke, who's in charge, obviously. It's not a tea towel. Don't win. So this is the symbolic shirt for green. Yeah. So there. So we just want to get a little selfie of you up here on stage in front of the important bit there. That's all right, mate. Anytime. Anything I can do for you, Cam. Good on you, buddy. So yeah, would you please make him, give him a big round of applause? That's pretty cool. My next presenter is thinking, thank goodness I don't have a company shirt. Andrew Pumphrey, do you want to come and join us? So Andrew is a CEO and Managing Director of OzAurum Resources. And if you've been following them for the last couple of years, you will have heard all about Mulgabby and Patricia Gold projects, which are located in the prolific Norseman-Maluna Greenstone Belt in the Eastern Goldfields of WA, which is where this gentleman hails from, and myself as well. So they've added to their mix, though, recently. They've spiced things up a bit. They've got themselves a little project in Brazil, a lithium project. It's not little, actually. It's a strategic, advanced lithium project. And they reckon that's going to be a very attractive opportunity for them as they expand their portfolio. Let's hear. Welcome, sir.
Thanks very much, Chrissy, for the introduction, and thanks very much for the organisers of this great conference to present today. Yeah, look, if I can get the clicker to work. We're presenting a story of Brazil Lithium for OzAurum Resources. This is a new acquisition. We're previously a gold explorer based out of Kalgoorlie. Company offices there. Obviously, gold's been pretty unloved for a while, so we started looking around at what we thought were other opportunities for advanced projects. My background is mining, so I'm looking for things I can mine. So that took us to Brazil, and I was really excited about the opportunities that we've discovered up there. We've found a very advanced lithium project with some excellent lithium grades in very coarse grain spodumene crystals, a lot of LCT pegmatites in this area, and look, a past production of beryl, tantalum and tourmaline from these mines, so we know they're LCT pegmatites. That's just a really exciting opportunity. At the same time, we've pegged over 20,000 hectares of similar sort of stratigraphic position of what we think is the main LCT pegmatite host in the region. So really excited about the basically exploration opportunities that's going to bring to us going forward. And at the same time, we've got a very active Brazil lithium acquisition strategy that I'm personally sort of overseeing. I've just spent 8 weeks up in Brazil. I'm going back there in another 2 weeks' time up to Christmas, and I'll be over in Brazil most of my time next year because I really think this is going to be the main driver of our company moving forward. A little bit about us. We've got 160 million shares on issue, a bit under $3 million in the bank as of 30 September. Market cap's around 28 million. Obviously, we've seen a significant share re-rating to our stock price based on our Brazil lithium strategy that we're really excited about. On the major shareholders, basically myself and people that know me from Kalgoorlie have sort of stuck through us when it's been pretty tough in the gold space. So those guys have been buying up shares when our price has been cheap, and we've managed to get this Brazil opportunity, and we've seen a lot of value come back into our company. A little bit on our company. Jeff Williams is a well-known mining engineer, started Mineral Deposits. Basically took that company up to a $1 billion market cap in Senegal on a gold mine and a mineral sands project. Myself, I'm a geologist and mine surveyor. Been working in Kalgoorlie for a long time, so understand that area, but it hasn't stopped us going to Brazil. We've got Andy Tudor, who's Managing Director of Nexus Minerals, and Stephen Hewitt-Dutton is our Company Secretary. So why did we choose Brazil, or why did I choose Brazil? Look, I was really excited about the state of Minas Gerais. There is some pretty big lithium producers up there already, and there's a lot of exploration activity from Australian juniors, some really great success stories, particularly Latin Resources have went up there a number of years ago, and look, they're going to build a significant business up there now. So that caught my attention straight away. I guess Sigma Lithium is one of the bigger ones that's now in production there. And we also see that CBL, which is basically a Brazilian private company, they've got an underground mine, lithium mine, it's been running for a number of years. So that also caught my attention. As well as BHP, they've been in this state for probably since the 1990s with VLA, and this is a really significant iron ore producing area. So look, it's got excellent infrastructure, it's all hydroelectric power, lots of water, and we've got the port of Victoria, which all the iron ore is being shipped out of, and that's out from in this general area too. So look, just moving on to the main project. This is a project that's been sort of privately held by a family in Brazil for over 50 years. I've always been attracted to that. I mean, the projects that I've entered into, OzAurum I'd personally held for 30 years, and I was quite passionate about them. That was one thing I looked at, is just going around and looking at these family-held projects that we actually thought had potential for lithium. The Pacheco family have been mining tantalite, beryl and tourmaline for a number of years, as I've just mentioned. And look, there's just no previous exploration ever been done there. So I just thought this was a really unique opportunity. So I spent the time on the ground mapping and identified over 20 of these LCT pegmatites. The terrain over there is pretty steep and it's pretty rough, but we've managed to get around. There's lots of ticks and plants that sting you and things that scratch you. But look, the field work has been really interesting, and we've sort of learned a lot about the geology of the area. We've found an S-type granite in there that was previously wasn't mapped. The government mapping in this area is quite broad. So it just proves again, if you get the boots on the ground and you're doing the work, you're going to find the material. And basically, it's a classic geological setting for lithium deposits. So we've obviously, this presents a really good target for diamond drilling. So we've purchased our drill rig. I've been over there getting that sorted out and sourcing all the equipment we need. I used to run a drilling business in Kalgoorlie for about 30 years, so I've had a bit of practice of drilling. So we think having a company-owned drill rig gives us a huge advantage. I started looking at drilling contractors over there, and there's none available. One thing I found that a lot of your drilling technology is about 50 years behind Kalgoorlie. I mean, I had a lot of trouble even finding the wireline drilling equipment that we need. So we think the company-owned drill rig is the way to go, and I'll be expanding that. If we can get some results drilling here, we'll be getting more rigs in pretty quickly. A little bit about this mine. It was actually it's a gallery or a cave, so we had to go into sort of a hill and add it. And it had been previously mined for mica and feldspar, but they managed to put a cross-cut, which coincidentally just intersected this 7 metre plus wide zone of giant spodumene crystals. And I was really excited to see crystals over 1 metre long. I mean, you don't see that very often. You see it down at Greenbushes and you see it at Mount Marion. So, and that, from a mining point of view, the coarser the spodumene, the better, because that makes all your processing a lot easier at the other end. Just moving on, I was just talking a little bit about Governor Valdez. I mean, we're about 80 kilometres away from this city, but it's a city of about 280,000. As I said, I've spent probably the last 8 weeks over there in and around this area. I'm just really impressed about the infrastructure. There's a lot of skilled professionals and trades. Obviously, it's a great service hub. And look, we've got sealed highway network right up to our project area. I've talked about the hydroelectric power. Obviously, it's got the railway line that runs down to the Port of Victoria that all the Vale iron ore gets shipped through. So it's a great place to be, finding a mine. Why lithium? Look, it's well known this lithium demand outstrips supply for the next 10 years. There's a lot of people talking about that, so I'm not going to go on about that too much, but there's not a lot of new mines that have got to be found, to meet this demand. And obviously we've got these large factories getting built in the US. One that sort of caught my eye was Daimler Trucks are planning quite a big gigafactory. We used to run a road train business in Kalgoorlie carting ore, and those trucks chew about every kilometre they go, they use a litre of diesel. So when I saw that this is, we're talking about batteries in trucks, I thought, well, this is getting serious now, and this is where a lot of this future's going to go in fully automated trucks and that. So that sort of caught my eye, because this is a JV between Daimler, Cummins and Packard, who build Kenworth trucks. So if those guys are taking this seriously, well, this whole lithium thing this story is going to keep on going, obviously. And in California, they're going to be banning the sale of new cars from 2035. So I'll just talk quickly about our gold projects. We've got our gold projects in Kalgoorlie, probably very strategically located, right near the Northern Star Carosue Dam mill. This has taken a bit of a back seat for us at the moment, but at some stage we'll revisit this if the gold price keeps on going the way it is. At Mulgoby North, we've located these new north-south faults, and we now know that those north-south faults are critical in the location of a high-grade mineralisation at our next-door neighbours at Northern Star. So that's something that we'll look at in the future. And just another project we've got at Kalgoorlie is the Patricia high-grade gold project. Obviously had some historical high grades, over 40 grams per tonne gold. We've done quite a lot of drilling there, and we've been able to replicate those grades. So again, we sort of believe that's another project that we'll be revisiting at some stage. So we're basically sitting on our gold projects at the moment. What have we got going planned forward? Well, for the next quarter or end of this year, I want to try and get this in-house diamond drilling capability up and running. I think that's really important. So it's taking a bit of time, but I guess that sets us up well for next year. So Q1 next year, I want to be diamond drilling at the Jamie Lynn-Lopis project. Obviously, we've got ongoing geological mapping going on at the moment, so that's sort of continuing. We've got 2 geologists in Brazil that's working with me directly, so we're constantly on the ground. So there's going to be more opportunities that's going to present. A little bit about our applications. We've pegged around about 20,000 hectares. Lots of potential there. Those tenements are getting granted, so I'm expecting they should be all granted by Q1 next year. So we'll start doing some first pass reconnaissance on them, just some basic soil sampling and geological mapping. And the other thing is we've got a really active ongoing lithium acquisition strategy. So I'm up there talking to a lot of private guys. That's one thing that really attracted me to Brazil, was it reminded me of Kalgoorlie 30 years ago. There's a lot of small tenement holders, they're all private miners, all doing their own thing. So there's obviously some opportunities there to consolidate them and talk to those guys. And some of them are mining spodumene, and selling it to the Chinese. So I'm really excited about those potentials, opportunities coming up. And look, why do I want to invest in OzAurum? Well, I've got a proven track record of putting money into the ground. We're a relatively new company, we're only sort of 2.5 years old, but we've done 93,000 metres of drilling, so every dollar goes into the ground. Obviously, this lithium growth story is not stopping, so and we think our projects are advanced. I think that's the key. We can potentially move quite quickly on them, and they've got obviously a lot of potential for significant lithium discovery, and we've got this active acquisition strategy over there. So, and just look, I really like the Brazil infrastructure and their mining jurisdiction. I mean, we've looked at projects all around the world. I've probably spent 12 months looking at stuff in Africa, Canada, all over the place. I mean, they're great jurisdictions, but I'm very comfortable being in Brazil. Obviously, we've got our West Australian gold exposure, so they're our 2 main projects. So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Andrew Pumphrey. All right, now the next time I introduced our next presenter was at Southwest Connect. Who went to Southwest Connect? Hands up. Who was there? 3 of us. Excellent. 4 of us. Fantastic. Well, the rest of you should put it on your calendar for next year, because it was really, really interesting, and it's a fantastic location. So I introduced this fellow here. He had just got back, I think you were 1 week back from... No, you were probably a couple of days back, weren't you, from going to Canada?
1 week.
Yeah, to James Bay. So what was really interesting is that James Bay has been one of the most successful IPOs of 2023. It was only done how many weeks ago?
It's about 9 weeks on
9
Tuesday.
weeks ago. So and then
very
what
new.
happened? Yeah. So now he managed to. So he had that happen, and then he took off over to Canada, and he managed to convince his family that he should be able to do that. And I say that's really interesting or really impressive because those of you who've been involved in an IPO know how much work is involved in it. Those of you who've been involved in creating and bringing into the world a baby will know how much work goes into that as well. Those things happen in tandem for this man here. And then he jumped on a plane when said baby was 1 week old and went to Canada. So he must have had a pretty convincing argument for his other half to get onto that plane, I reckon.
Nothing's free, Chrissy. I'll be paying for a while. So,
That's not what I want. I didn't want to set you up that way. I wanted
and
to say,
my wife is Brazilian, so I'll be paying for double the amount of time.
yeah, well, I was trying to work it in your favour. I was saying, if you manage to convince her to get there and you're still alive, then
Just.
I reckon you'll be able to convince us to jump on board. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. Better in the aircon than outside today. It's a stinker, and it's going to be for the next week or so. So James Bay Minerals, as mentioned, listed for just over 9 weeks now. We're a Canadian-focused lithium explorer targeting large-scale discoveries. So a bit of a company snapshot. We have just under 35,000 hectares of prospective lithium projects in the James Bay region of Quebec. We have 60.5 million shares on issue at a 41 cent share price. We're at just under 25 million. Important to note, top 20 hold 70%, board, management and vendors, and the vendors are our exploration team, hold roughly 40% of the company. So we're all really incentivized to see this company do well. Some of the company highlights. So within our first 8 weeks, we were able to discover spodumene in one of our pegmatites at our Aero property. And we've also expanded our footprint on the Legrand Greenstone Belt to have what we've interpreted as the largest length on the lithium trend of about 55 kilometres. And I think we worked out that Patriot has 50 kilometres on that same trend. So really good position to have in that region. And we're also in a region that's going to rival the Pilbara if it's not already. So we really see that the focus will shift over there in the next few years, and we're a little bit ahead of the game. So board of directors, really experienced team, all worked in the lithium space. I think we calculated over 10 projects that we've been involved in. Myself, so I've worked nearly 2 decades in project development in mainly commercial roles. In the lithium space, I set up the Chianchi lithium hydroxide plant commercial execution strategy down in Kwinana, and also worked at Pumphrey Minerals leading the commercial team for the projects division there. Gerard O'Donovan is in the room somewhere, is our non-executive chair, was previously the managing director of Battery Age Minerals, and also spent 6 years at Pilbara Minerals, where he led the Pilgangora Stage 1 processing plant to production, and also the integration of the Altura operations into the existing Pilbara Minerals business. Judy Baker, a Canadian based out of Toronto. She is a geologist by background and spent 8 years as a director of Nemaska Lithium, where she led the discovery of the Whabouchi asset, which up until recently was the largest hard rock lithium asset in all of North America. And then our final non-exec director, Dina Segovic, is the COO and founding director of Primero Group, who are the leading engineering, procurement, construction contractor globally for the lithium space, which Cam touched on earlier. Senior management, Mark Fouquet, Marty Hubert, locals to Quebec, also the vendors, really important for us. They're French speaking and allow us to get a lot of cut through with local suppliers. The First Nations group. Should also mention Mark's wife actually teaches the First Nation groups in becoming teachers. So we've already got established relationships with these communities, and they've been really receptive to us when we've been over there. CFO Daniel Lochnan, Company Secretary James Doyle, and Matthew Hayes, our corporate development. So jumping on to, we've got our properties on the screen. It's split into 2 separate projects. So Trollus in the south and the Legrand in the north. So the 3 properties across the north being Jewel, Aero, Aqua, and then Trollus on the south have what we see as the 3 key ingredients for giant LCT pegmatites. Now LCT means lithium, cesium, tantalum, And the first being that they sit on Neo-Archean rocks of about 2.7 billion years old. The second key ingredient is sitting on large deformation zones or large regional faults. So in some instances, the deformation zones are up to 1 kilometre wide on these properties. The larger those faults, the larger the pegmatites. So you will have smaller regional faults and deformation zones, but that will mean smaller pegmatites. And the third key ingredients being in close proximity to greenstone belts. So I've overlaid all three of them on the screen. So working back, if we think this theory is sound, and to prove that there's been success with that same theory, we'll pull up some of the recent discoveries in the area and who sit on those three key ingredients as well. Starting up to the east, you've got Patriot Battery Metals, who have got 110 million tonne resource in one pegmatite, which is phenomenal. Winsome Cancer, Mea Q2, which is being developed at the moment. James Bay Allchem, Rose Critical Elements, the Wabuchi asset, which Judy led the discovery of, and the Sayona Moblin asset, all massive deposits. So now that we've ticked those three key ingredients, it was really important for us to get on the ground, which we did immediately after listing. And again, that was due to having the local exploration team in Quebec ready to go. And for us, we were able to uncover 2 large fractionated fields of pegmatites. So why is that significant? Because only 2% of the world's pegmatite population are fractionated. So that ticked the box for us. The next step was to identify if we had spodumene within this system, which we were able to do in one of our pegmatites, which we call the Warhawk. So we've identified that via the cleavage, which is what you expect of spodumene, and also utilising a SciAps Libs machine. So utilising that SciAps Libs machine, we've gone across a 2.5 kilometre trend on the property and have got extremely elevated readings all the way across this property in different samples and including wall rock. So although you can't replace this with assays, we've used it as a real positive tool for yes/no of lithium mineralisation in the system. And now we'll look to use all the data that we've gathered from our field program to plan in next steps and really look where the highest concentration of lithium is in this system. Moving across to our Aqua property, which was our most eastern property, there's been some really interesting progress made by our neighbour, Fin Resources. So I'll just see if I could. So this red dot on the screen, Fin's had quite a spectacular discovery there in this large outcropping pegmatite with spodumene crystals up to 70 centimetres long. They've just recently announced that the grade on those is about 6.8% Li2O, so phenomenal grades there. And they've tracked that all the way out to the west. And we firmly believe that that west to east trend will extend into our property. And given we have pretty much the whole middle portion of that, we're really excited with what could come of that. And given the initial field program we've run with the helicopters, there's a lot of pegmatites out there, which will really make an interesting field program next year. So due to the progress we've made at Aero, as well as our results that Fin's having on our border and some of our desktop studies we've undertaken, we've expanded our footprint on this Legrand greenstone belt by about 70%. So now that land holding is 30,000 hectares. And as mentioned, that's 55 kilometres of this lithium trend. So we've only really scratched the surface in the first 8 weeks, and what we have ahead of us is really exciting. So some of the activities we completed in the maiden field program and in the first 8 weeks. So I was able to get over there for about 10 days, I think it was, and managed to get out to Wamingji and meet the deputy chief of the Cree community in Arden Visor. It was a great meeting, very supportive of us in the region, and happy that we made the effort at such an early stage to go out and give them the time of day. We've undertaken LiDAR, aerial photography, lots of other aerial surveys, and also an extensive field mapping program. So we've got a hell of a lot of data that's due back over the next few months, and we'll be using that to really plan in our next steps. Some of the upcoming activities obviously use all the data that's gathered from this field program and then look to plan our next steps, which is looking very, very positive for Aero, and that we potentially have a drill target there. So drill permits, tendering, drilling contacts will be a focus, while also planning and getting the field teams out to our priority 1 targets across Jewel and Aero and Aqua, soon as the snow melts next year. So a little bit on, everyone's got a view on the lithium price. I think Cameron's down there, he's probably going to show me up when he comes up here, so look forward to that. But just a bit of a kind of our view on where we think it's at, and this is coming from my own project development background, and we've had some recent reports submitted from some of the large financial institutions on this sustained oversupply of lithium. Now, having worked in projects, two things I know: projects never finish on time and they never ramp up as per your study. Also on top of that, within these reports, we've got direct lithium extraction and other unconventional types of lithium that aren't proven at a commercial scale factored into these reports. So I think it is a difficult mineral to process. I've seen it firsthand at Pilbara, and I think there'll be significant headwinds for supply to still meet demand long term. And if we have a look at the quarter by quarter EV growth rate, it's still consistently at 10, 11%. So I think macroeconomics and world issues at the moment are affecting where the lithium price is, but I think in the medium term, in a year or two, we're really going to see it turn and get back to some quite positive levels. Although at the current levels, it's still 4 times what it was 3-4 years ago. Some of the M&A activity, some of the market activity, which has really been hotting up, especially in WA, and how that affects where the whole world lithium market is. We've got a couple of large takeover bids being made on the likes of Liontown and Azure by Albemarle and SQM, large international organisations looking to get a bit of a foothold in Western Australia. Liontown's fell away due to significant stake taken by Hancock, and SQM one hasn't played out yet, but looking like a similar scenario. What does that mean? It means that these international companies are going to have to look elsewhere, and it can be seen currently as a somewhat private nationalisation of West Australian lithium assets. So it's a real interesting space to watch. And then if you link that in with the nationalisation of lithium in Chile, as well as some of the large African assets tied up in dispute, it really is putting the focus on one other region in the world, which we see as James Bay. James Bay is going to become the hottest area in the world. Reasons for that? It's the only other tier 1 jurisdiction with the potential and proven in some of the recent discoveries for these massive LCT pegmatite deposits. The government supports this region. So you've got exploration tax rebates for up to 40% for critical minerals. So every dollar we spend, we get up to 40 cents back. Also link that in with flow-through funding, which allows us to raise capital at a premium and only dilute shareholders by half. We really are incentivised to explore in that region. Why do they want that? Well, they're establishing these downstream facilities. With around the borders of Montreal, they've got Norfolk, POSCO, and a few others who have been funded by the government to set up these facilities. Now, what do they want them there for? So they can supply these minerals at one point. And until those minerals come online, they'll have to import it, which is not a sensible thing for that state. So we see it as the one area with the biggest potential globally. We have one of the most significant land holdings there. We're making really, really good progress, and it's such early days. We're 9 weeks from listing, one of the best IPOs of the year, and we're going to continue to grow this company over the next couple of years. So appreciate you all for listening today, and if you've got any questions, I'll be at the booth. So thanks very much.
Andrew, when I was chatting, as I do to you at the start, did I actually give everyone your name?
I don't know.
I did. Did I? So it's very rude of me. Andrew Dornan, everyone. So would you like to say hello, Andrew? Just I'm doing it retrospectively. I'm really sorry about that. Well done, buddy.
That's all right, Chrissy. I'll get grilled by my wife when I get home, so that's all good.
Good on you. Thanks, Andrew. Hey, we've been talking obviously a lot about lithium today, a little bit yesterday morning as well. So our next presentation up here on stage, we've got one of the premier experts on lithium. And when you think about it, I've mentioned the name of Mr. Lithium a couple of times on stage, Joe Lowry from America. So America has Mr. Lithium, but in Australia, we don't settle for Misters, we have doctors. So we have got Dr. Lithium coming to join us on stage. This is Dr. Cameron Perks. Would you make him welcome, everyone? A little bit more excitement. It's a great expense to management that we've managed to secure him today. He's here on behalf of Benchmark Mineral Intelligence. Now, the title that you have in your brochure in front of you, Cameron's actually tweaked it a little bit. He's also tweaked the content for you because he's been listening, he's been thinking he needs to give you something a little bit different. So it's now entitled Opportunities and Challenges for Lithium Project Developers in the Next Decade. So despite that low price for lithium, we were chatting outside and he thinks maybe there is no better time to be invested. Let's see what you think.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, what an introduction. I said that to call me Dr. Lithium just to rile Joe up, just in case he's watching, and I'm sure he'll love that. This is my third conference in 7 days, so I think that there's a little bit of content here repurposed from another conference in case any of you were at that one as well, but I'll try to make it as fresh as I can, right? Because we've got a lot of lithium attendance at this conference, a lot of explorers out there in the room, from Canada, Australia, Europe, South America, mostly hard rock, to be fair. So Southeast Asia as well, with Matza as well. So we have lepidolite representation as well. So there's actually a lot you could all learn by speaking to a few of those project developers. They're all really well informed, right? So, but why me? How am I well informed, right? Because I do speak to, that's all I do is I talk to lithium project developers, producers, the buyers of lithium and the traders every day. That's all I do. Lithium, and why Benchmark? We recently brought on a private equity investor last week. It was announced, and that made us the most valuable business of our kind in our space. And we're the only PRA a price reporting agency, I should say, to complete an IOSCO Type 2 certification for battery materials. So our analysts are in the market every day, every week and every month, talking to producers about what the price is, so price discovery, right? I'm actually more in the lithium forecast and consulting side of things, so slightly different. And this is sort of an overview of our company. If you don't know, we've got a few events. So we have our famous, what's it called? The World Tour back in January for Benchmark, which is what kind of made the company well known back in 2015 and 16. So that's free to attend. And that'll be in Australia next month, 2 months, just 2 months away. We also just launched we announced that we will be launching a sustainable lithium price index by the end of this month. So those burning questions about potential green premiums, while this is not speaking to a green premium, it may indicate where prices will go, and it's going to help encourage the development of a price like that. A lot of projects out there, a lot of people out there asking about green premiums and so on. So hopefully this will go a long way to answering that question. But why are we here today? And it's not irrelevant, right? This green premium, asking about sustainability. And I know there's a few faces in here, a few people in here born before 1980 and probably think that this is all a joke. But, and I understand that sustainability before 2016 was a thing that did exist, but the Paris Agreement in 2016 was a moment where it was signed into law that countries were to abide by and to target decarbonisation. And then nothing really happened. Well, from my perspective, I mean, probably a lot happened. And then Elon Musk came around and made it cool, made it fashionable to own an electric vehicle, and things really took off from there. BYD, who is fast becoming the world's biggest electric vehicle, well, they are the world's largest electric vehicle maker now, and will potentially one day be the largest car manufacturer in the world, really has now made electric vehicles mainstream. And this is just to illustrate that this is why we're here today, right? It's just to get on the same page. We all know this. And John Goodenough, who was the inventor of the lithium-ion battery, the forefather, he's passed away this year, but you know, lithium ion batteries are 10 years ahead of, say, sodium ion, for example, in terms of R&D and so on. So lithium itself, the element, the way it's structured, its size, the way it loses an electron, it's very well suited to batteries and electric vehicles. And so this illustrates that by say 2030, by 2040, we forecast out to, demand for lithium is really driven by batteries, by lithium ion batteries, by electric vehicles. In the past, lithium demand was driven by opaque industrial markets and pharmaceuticals and so on, and we've done a complete 180, and then we're starting to fill the rest of the pie up too. Next slide. This is just to illustrate that China is really the main driver for demand for electric vehicles, and that this is not really, it's not really slowed down necessarily. And if you think about say a 10% growth, and this is double-digit growth still, or a 20% growth on 100 gigawatt hours versus a 5% growth on 1,000 gigawatt hours, obviously one is adding a lot more demand, right? So as the market grows, naturally growth slows. But in any case, growth is still strong. This one to illustrate that demand will move outside of China eventually, and it is already moving outside of China. But that for lithium, it's more or less, it doesn't matter too much, and that the mix between NCM and LFP and all those that drive a preference between carbonate and hydroxide chemistries is probably 50-50. But that's not the only thing, right? That's not the only part of the equation. Demand is not the only consideration, because of course with EV sales, and these are fairly easy publicly available kind of numbers to get, EV sales numbers, and many of you again will say that, are we to trust China's EV sales numbers? Fair enough, but it's just one point of illustration that at least EV prices, EV demand is only one consideration. There's also supply, and as I will hopefully, well, we can talk about it now. You know, it's that sentimental factors and these macroeconomic headwinds, yes, but also sentimental factors, market buying behavior in China. It has its own rhymes and rhythms. And these are two of the main factors as to why prices have fallen recently, as well as inventory builds throughout the supply chain. And there's a fair bit more we can talk about there if you want to grab me after the talk. In any case, demand is there, supply is the other side of the equation. Can supply keep up? If we eliminate all of the possible probable projects, those ones that are not funded and haven't gone through their feasibility studies, then of course no. There's a large gap. If we fill that in with the projects that we've been, say, talking about today, and some of those projects that have now become operating projects in Africa, then yes. I mean, we were always forecasting a balanced market in 24, 25, and potentially 2026, and then again another deficit emerging, just like it is. You know, I think if you plot any mineral up here, you'll get a significant deficit. Fair enough, but the size of that deficit is quite significant, 1 million tons every few years. And I'll talk about some of the risks here too, because you'll notice that one of those large chunks, the gray one, is secondary supply, so recycling. So there's a risk in that supply coming online. And of course, there's a risk in other types of materials, other types of processing technologies being implemented here. And while DLE is not necessarily a new technology, its application of it in certain places certainly is a new thing, right? And that comes with risks. And I'm picking on brine here, but of course, spodumene has its own risks. So does mica. So does every commodity. We've seen how some projects will struggle with recovery rates if the project is not developed in the appropriate way. And in any case, brine will come with its own challenges, right? With say high magnesium content, you need to apply a new technology like potentially one of those many that are being developed by DLE providers and project developers out there. These are just sorption technologies. Besides these, there's ion exchange, there's membranes, there's solvents. So there's all sorts of composite solutions to all that. But of course, that's not the only consideration. when we're talking about a lithium project, and it's the geopolitical one, right? So a lot of projects are hedging their bets between South American politics and Western Australia. It's great to have exposure to both if that's in your risk profile. So if I were to maybe think about this and reframe it in terms of challenges and opportunities, one of the biggest opportunities is in maybe technological development and understanding which of the projects here today and out there elsewhere are developing their own technology and which of them are building their own technology and whether that's a good idea or not, and how that will also definitely be a challenge. I'll go back a little bit too and say that this supply and demand gap is obviously a huge opportunity, but the immediate term is certainly a big challenge. You know, we're going to see subdued prices for the next couple of years, but if a project is a good project and it's based on its own merits, then it will survive, and we'll see another cycle, right, emerge within the next few years of high prices, such as it is with mining. And we do require a large number of mines. You've seen this infographic, you can get this for free online, that we require something like 70 to 80 mines. It depends on the size of the mine, of course, over the next decade. And that the point of this slide maybe is to more show that geographical distribution will be a large factor now that we also have, the IRA, we have carbon border taxes, we have things that are mandating supply in places like Europe that might not be as capital efficient as the traditional routes. And that's a big challenge, but it's also a big opportunity for project developers in those regions, like Europe and North America, of course. And the same goes for lithium chemical supply. Again, a free infographic if you'd like it, it's online. China would dominate lithium chemical supply even more than this if we were to include technical grade material to battery grade materials. But really, it's a China story all over. And that is a huge challenge because they have the upper hand in terms of costs, capital availability, the cost of capital, but at the same time, that's a huge opportunity for people outside of China. You know, Elon Musk copped a lot of flack for saying that no, it's not mining that's the bottleneck, and it's refining. But I think that he in some ways he's wrong, in some ways he's right. Outside of China, yes, a big bottleneck, big opportunity. And look, I mentioned Europe, but also North America. Again, there's a big focus on some of these new technologies like DLE and for new project types like clay, and there's a focus on sustainability, and all of these will pose big challenges. But at the same time, this is the way the market is moving, and so there is a big opportunity in that as well. The answer, what does North America have enough, is probably yes, but will it eventuate into reality? Probably not. So another reason why that might not eventuate into reality is again that costs are increasing, and that projects, despite the IRA and so on, do still need to rely on the merits of their project, and will need to demonstrate that they are economic, despite lots of money flowing into the sector from grants and so on, incentives. And just a few examples here of projects that have recently updated their feasibility studies. Capital costs, upfront costs, are obviously going to be a big challenge for the industry going forward. But I think that companies that are updating their feasibility studies and their numbers this is an opportunity for investors to get an understanding of what the reality is when it comes to costs. And those that are updating their studies, I applaud them for having done so. And so we can see how there's an opportunity here as well as a challenge. So hopefully that was interesting. Any questions, don't hesitate to come and contact me or come up to me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perks. You will always complete your speeches now with, I know you found that interesting. I know you found that interesting. All right, team, we are going to have a little lunch break. And just while we do, Garrett, can you stand up here?